And welcome to the Broad and Patterson podcast. For Alex Ozer, I'm your host, Hunter Walsh, and we have a laundry list to tackle this week, don't we?
Yeah, today we're going to be talking about the Philadelphia versus Atlanta recap, along with Philadelphia versus Detroit. We'll be looking back at the last week for the Phillies. We're going to have our 76ers predictions. They start in a month.
A month? Yeah, how crazy is that?
Exactly.
We are 1 month away from Sixers basketball.
And Ben Simmons making a three.
We're actually a week away from
Preseason.
Sixers basketball.
Just in general.
In total. But we've got regular season a month away from this date today. So let's quickly transition into this Eagles game. Carson Wentz was so good, but he was so bad. And I've never been able to say that about a quarterback before.
You probably have with, like, Matthew Stafford or something like that.
We'll talk about him later.
Yeah, he's garbage.
But I want to just talk about, were you panicking after the first quarter? I mean, it was 3-0. Carson Wentz did have a bit of a rough start. He was like 1 for 6 or something like that. Mm-hmm. It was a good start to the game with Miles Sanders. But then he just kept trying to go outside, and the front seven for Atlanta really picked that up well. Mm-hmm. So we didn't see much success there. But in the second half, it was only 7-6 in the second half, and 10-6 at halftime. Mm-hmm. Were you concerned at halftime?
No. They start off slow, and it's a normal thing. Last week, the week before, probably 4 or 5 times.
But the offense was terrible.
Yeah. Except
for the 2 drives with the field goals. That's when, the second quarter is when we kind of saw how bad Carson was. And we had that one drive with Josh McCown. He was 3 for 5, 24 yards, and 72 was his QBR. But people, I'm hearing, on other radio shows, and, Mike Missinelli or Marks and Reese, anything like that, people are calling in and saying, why did Doug take McCown out of that drive? Well, if you look at that drive overall, he wasn't great.
Yeah.
He had 2 incompletions, but 3 of his completions, right? 2 of them were checkdowns, and 1 was like an 11-yard bullet. Mm-hmm. He wasn't like throwing dimes out here.
Yeah, and the same people that wanted him to stay in the game the entire time and wanted him to lead the team after that are the same people that wanted Nick Foles to lead the team this season.
I'm sure. And I mean...
And the concept of time isn't very foreign to them.
I think a lot of people... I think we're starting to see, and I really don't want to see it, but...
The stupidity.
Yeah. But we're starting to see Philadelphia fans shift away from Carson Wentz. And I think a lot of that is listening to national sports television and listening to national sports podcasts and stuff like that. When they're talking about Carson, being injury prone, or, Carson can't throw the deep ball, or Carson doesn't have any weapons, or the running backs are terrible. Carson has the team on his back and he's not carrying them well. None of that's true. That's the thing.
How dare they make fun of Call Me Carson? People these days.
I mean, Carson can very well throw the deep ball. He had 3 of the top 5 longest passes in week 1. Through the air.
Can we just real quick talk about how Ronald Darby got burnt about 4 or 5 times just in that game?
And people are already calling for his head. Like, if you're calling, I don't think people realize, because I don't really think a lot of these diehard Eagles fans really understand who their best defensive back is. Besides Malcolm Jenkins.
All right, so let's just say the best defensive back besides the best defensive back.
Sure.
Big brain.
The second best defensive back is Ronald Darby, without a doubt. Okay, he's coming off of an ACL injury that he suffered against the Cowboys last year. What did you think of the defense in this game?
It was okay. There was just some bad plays. You know, I think there's a bomb to maybe Calvin Ridley. I'm not sure who it was.
That got burnt?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure either.
And then I'm pretty sure there's 2 times.
I want to say, was it Avonte Maddox?
Maybe.
I think so.
Yeah, but
got burned on that
But then
play.
Ronald Darby got burned 2 times in the same drive. Luckily, Matt Ryan was so absolutely garbage.
By Julio, though. Granted.
Yeah, but he got killed on a double move once, and I'm pretty sure it was just a post route. But he didn't get help for the safety, so.
I will tell you. I mean, this is only the 3rd episode of the podcast.
We're not going to last the average podcast length of 7.
But I want to just say, and you guys can trust me on this, I have hated Jim Schwartz in the last 2 years. I absolutely can't stand him. This game, I loved Jim Schwartz. Because his play calling was amazing. That one play where it looked like man coverage, okay, and everyone set up in man coverage, but then the ball is snapped and Andrew Sandeo just takes off.
Gets his first
second sack of his career against Matt Ryan. I just thought that was an amazing call. And I think what that kind of plays on is the fact that a lot of teams know that this defense and Jim Schwartz don't like to blitz at all. So if you set up...
Even with that arsenal.
If you set up in zone or you set up in man and then you just blitz guys, they just take off towards the quarterback. Offenses can't handle that kind of stuff. But just overall, I mean, Jim Schwartz can't really do anything about the secondary that he's given. And Julio, he can't do anything.
Now we can put Julio in the tags. Thank you.
I also want to say, and I do this a lot, and I don't want to do it, but I'm kind of blaming this game on the officiating because...
Were we the Saints?
No. But I'm just saying that game-winning touchdown that Julio had where Naruto ran into the end zone, that was an illegal block in the back by Jake Matthews, I think.
We also, it was earlier in the game, but we got a kind of blatant, pretty sure pass interference call because one of the receivers was grabbing Julio by the back of his arm. I'm pretty sure on the right. I think it was 3rd down. So.
And they got it.
No, they didn't get it. We managed to actually get it, which was weird. But,
it was offensive pass interference?
Yes, it was offensive pass interference. Defensive pass interference on us, but they didn't call it for some reason. But
they missed it. Okay, that's what you're saying.
So it's just missed calls, just in general. It's not that they just screwed over one side, even though they kind of did with the missed calls.
A lot of people are panicking. And if you're looking at local television and local radio stations, a lot of people are panicking. I picked them to lose this game in my predictions anyway. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it really makes that much of a difference. Just the injuries is really what's holding us back here. I think it's kind of obvious that we're going to start 2-2 at this point. I don't want to say obvious because we can always win that game. Don't we play the
Packers week 4?
Yes, we play them Thursday night.
Yeah, we play the Lions, so that's an easy win.
I mean, hopefully we have a little bit of help.
Hill,
we will have Grugier Hill back. I doubt that we're going to have Jackson back. We might have Alshon back.
But do you feel that Aguilar can lead this team, even if it's only just for 2 games?
I feel like it was kind of God's plan. When we saw in the offseason, I think it was like the week before preseason, that video came out of Nelson practicing down in Miami with Randy Moss. And I think Aguilar really wants to get better, and I think he has gotten better. Obviously, if you're going to pin a player on this game, pin this game on a player,
good English, by the way.
It's going to be Nelly, which sucks because he was our leading receiver.
Mm-hmm. But that includes players like Mac Hollins, what's his face? The player we drafted in the 2nd round. I forgot his name.
JJ Arthega-Whiteside.
Yeah, we get players like him. They get more opportunities. Sadly, for the Falcons game for about I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. We didn't have a tight end.
Yeah,
a single tight end.
I thought it was funny when Ertz was gonna go off to the sideline and get checked out. Doug said, "You got to go back in because we don't have anybody else." At that point, because Goddard had gone out and Alex Ellis was still in the practice squad. Greg Ward as well. So
we had Halapula Vice, I think. Was he the
Jason
person?
Peters.
Yeah, we had Halapula
Jason
Vice
Peters can
tight
play
end,
tight
right?
end.
Yeah.
So overall, Wentz was 25 for 43, which, by the way, is only 2 incompletions more than Matt Ryan. He had a 58 completion percentage,
Both
230 yards, a touchdown to 2 interceptions, and a QBR of 62. While Matt Ryan he was 27 for 43, as I mentioned, a completion percentage of 63, 320 yards, which he owes that to his receivers, 3 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, and an 80 QBR.
A lot of interceptions.
A lot of interceptions were thrown.
Very sloppy play.
This was a much better game in the secondary than we saw against Case Keenum.
Yeah, we just if Julio didn't get that.
A lot of pressures. If Julio didn't get that, that's a win, and we aren't really worried as much.
Kenny Galladay, Marvin Jones Jr.
But I don't think
they're
not Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Mo Sanu.
Mm-hmm. Or retired Anquan Bolden. Same.
I mean, Calvin Johnson could show up.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's look at rushing here. I was very, very impressed with our rushing defense. Except from that 28-yarder from Ito Smith. I was very impressed with the rushing defense. Avonte Freeman, okay.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Pro Bowl running back.
Yeah, he got injured last year. Probably the only reason he didn't make it.
He only averaged 2 yards a carry in this game.
How?
In 11 attempts.
How?
Only 4 running backs, actually. We didn't even really see Sproles at all in this game. I don't really think he even took a rush. The only players that had a rush in this game were Miles Sanders, who had 10. He had 28 yards.
Still not great.
Miles Sanders, I just said that. Jordan Howard has 8 attempts for 18 yards. Carson Wentz had 3 attempts for 3 yards, and Corey Clement had 1 attempt for 0 yards.
Is this an issue?
No, because I think it's the play calling when it comes to rushing. I think we've seen, and I also think a lot of the problem is Miles Sanders trying to go outside and trying to get a 30-yard play every time.
Which would boost his yards per carry up.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, if he ran just up the middle, he'd be a lot better. Receiving, obviously,
Aguilar.
The lion's share of the receptions went to Zach Ertz. He had 16 receptions. Aguilar had 11.
Mm-hmm. More specifically, Aguilar probably had more yards, I'm guessing.
He had 107. Yes. Ertz had 72. Aguilar had the 43-yarder.
And could have had about a 60-yarder. But,
yeah.
You know, he had the ghost of Alshon Jeffrey in him. The stone hands.
Not one reception not even one target for number 17 or number 10. Which kind of concerns me. Kind of concerns me about the medical staff. Because, what happened before the game? We saw Dallas Goedert kind of ran into a pole backwards. Kind of hurt his calf. I'm hearing that he'll be ready for next week.
That'd be great.
But Deshaun and Alshon will not be. The Falcons had 2 receivers with over 100 yards, which were Ridley and Jones. That's an issue. I think that's the one thing I wasn't impressed with with Jim Schwartz, he didn't really adjust to certain receivers. Like, we never really saw a double team on Julio, which I think is a no-brainer.
We did once, but they still killed us on the inside. Luckily, I'm pretty sure we might have gotten a good hit on that time.
You were getting good enough pressure. I mean, I don't know why you couldn't put an extra DB out there. I mean, Jim Schwartz, obviously knows more about the game than I do. But
I mean, the defense did good, though. 2 of those interceptions, I'm pretty sure, were tipped.
Yes.
But still, 2 interceptions, 3 interceptions is
like the Darby interception there was no receiver near him. He just kind of waited for it.
It's like a punt return.
So I'm sure that one was tipped. The other interceptions belonged to Darby, right? Nate Gary had one.
I think there was number 35. I'm not sure.
And Sidney Jones.
Was there any number 35, or was I tripping?
Number 35
no,
for the Eagles?
I might have been tripping. I don't know.
There is no number 35 for the
Eagles. Okay, yeah, I'm tripping.
I don't think there isn't.
All right, well, let's just
as we mentioned, Sendeju had the only sack of the game. Yeah. Sendeju had the only sack of the game.
But we're getting good enough.
Carson Wentz was sacked 6 times.
Not great. Not good.
Not at all.
It's like Big Ben numbers.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. is what he injured?
Another thing... Oh, his shoulder. Another thing I wanted to talk about was our special teams.
Mac Hollins had a great play.
Miles Sanders. Yeah, he did. On the goal line, saving the punt. Miles Sanders got some special teams reps. He had 2 returns for 52 yards, which I was very impressed with him. I think he's a better option than Corey because he's more explosive. He's more elusive. But that's really all I want to talk about.
For the special teams?
That's really all I want to talk about, period. I don't think there's anything else that really stuck out to me.
Do you think, how much do you think the Eagles are going to win by this week? This is one final note. 10? 17?
We'll talk about that when we talk about the Lions game, which we will right now. Lions versus Eagles. Betting. I'm not exactly sure what the line is. Last time I checked, I think it was -7 for the Eagles.
I'm pretty sure I saw -6, so I was looking at Instagram right before I left.
Oh my god.
What is it?
The over-under is 45. The spread is -6. As you said, a lot of people are taking Detroit in this game, which is a
little strange. I mean, they beat the Chargers.
They did. They have a nice defense, but I don't think their offense can do anything.
There's no Ziggy Ansah anymore, which kind of sucks.
Their number 1 receiver is Kenny Galladay.
Yeah, as I said.
And they've got Danny Amendola. I don't think it's anything to worry about.
Far out of his prime, if he did have one. I mean, he's kind of been struggling lately. He was doing good on the Patriots, and then went to Miami.
The money line for the Eagles is 250, which is a lot less than I really thought it would be. But the predicted score is, as I said, it's -6 is the spread, but the predicted score is 30-12, which is random, but it's 29.8 here versus 11.9.
Right, well,
I don't think that's bad. I think voting for the Eagles could win you enough.
Money.
Go get your money, guys.
Yeah.
Dallas is playing Miami, man. They're gonna start out 3-0. They're gonna talk about, we're winning the Super Bowl, but you've only played the Giants, the Redskins, and the Dolphins.
We got to keep this PG, so we can't say anything terrible about the Cowboys.
Why not? This is a Philadelphia podcast. And as I'm talking here, the Phillies have just lost to the Braves in the last game of the series, 5-4, but they do win the series 2-1. And as we're saying, they're 3.5 games behind the Braves, or not the Braves, the second wild card.
All right. Well, let's go on a different page. Let's talk about the Sixers. All right.
So yeah, you want to talk about the Sixers? I have some predictions on tap here. I want to see. I wrote some down. I want to see what you think. So our record is 58-24.
Seems pretty legit.
Our floor, I had it at 48-34. However, I don't know how. It
depends.
A
On
lot
injuries.
of injuries. Yeah.
As in Joel Embiid and Joel Embiid.
If a lot of people could stay healthy, and we were, to have a great year, right, and we were better than expected, I could see our ceiling at 62-20.
Mm-hmm. They could win 65 if Ben Simmons can shoot a three.
Consistently.
Yes,
yeah.
consistently.
I put them at the second seed behind Milwaukee at the 58-24, not at the 62-20, because then they'd have the first seed. But at 58-24, I'd have them at the second seed behind Milwaukee, who I think is going to be 60-22. Player stats, I have Embiid 28, 11, 3, and 2.
Mm-hmm. And then Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons, I had 21, 8, 7, 1, and 1, with 18 triple doubles.
He's the new Mr. Triple Double. Russell Westbrook, get out the way. Not yet, he's still in his prime.
With Josh Richardson, I had 17 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. For Al Horford, I had 15 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 blocks, and a steal. Could be a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year.
Probably a snub.
Tobias Harris, I had 22.6 and 6. I think this is his first All-Star campaign, and I think we lose in the finals to the Clippers.
Kawhi gets the second ring.
And I think Ben Simmons wins third ring, actually.
Oh.
Ben Simmons wins most improved player of the NBA.
After making 1 3-pointer.
And so I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't do bench stats because those don't really matter.
Just on the spot, what about the rookie we drafted?
Matisse Thybulle. I think he'll get a lot more playing time than people think because he played 4 years in college.
A little bit to see what he's made of.
Yeah.
And
he's a great defender. So I feel like in crunch time, I feel like they could swap out Tobias Harris and Matisse Thybulle, late in the fourth quarter in a 10-point game, or less. So I could definitely see Brett Brown doing that. But this is going to be a good year for the Sixers. It's going to be a great year for the Sixers. I don't think they'll have to make a huge trade at the trade deadline.
Such as Jimmy
unless
Butler.
there's an injury. I don't know much that they could pick up at the trade deadline anyway.
Or Robert Covington has another second version of himself.
I think it's Matisse Thybulle, if I'm being honest with you.
I don't know. What do you think? Robert Covington was just, worse than Jimmy Butler, so...
I think Matisse Thybulle is a lot like Robert Covington. I think people are going to like him a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here we go.
He's going to be better?
Who? Matisse Thybulle is going to be better than Covington?
Yeah.
Long term? Yeah.
What
this year? No.
What about within 2 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
He could be.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got to shift over into our weekly dose of Phillies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how we dread this time. So yeah, you want to talk about the Sixers? I have some predictions on tap here. I want to see. I wrote some down. I want to see what you think. So our record is 58-24.
Seems pretty legit.
Our floor, I had it at 48-34. However, I don't know how. It
depends.
A
On
lot of
injuries.
injuries. Yeah.
As in Joel Embiid and Joel Embiid.
If a lot of people could stay healthy, and we were, to have a great year, right, and we were better than expected, I could see our ceiling at 62-20.
They could win 65 if Ben Simmons can shoot a three.
Consistently.
Yes,
yeah.
consistently.
I put them at the second seed behind Milwaukee at the 58-24, not at the 62-20, because then they'd have the first seed. But at 58-24, I'd have them at the second seed behind Milwaukee, who I think is going to be 60-22. Player stats, I have Embiid 28, 11, 3, and 2.
And then Ben Simmons.
Ben Simmons, I had 21, 8, 7, 1, and 1, with 18 triple doubles.
He's the new Mr. Triple Double. Russell Westbrook, get out the way. Not yet. He's still in his prime.
With Josh Richardson, I had 17 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists. For Al Horford, I had 15 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 blocks, and a steal. Could be a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year.
Probably a snub.
Tobias Harris, I had 22 points, 6 and 6. I think this is his first All-Star campaign, and I think we lose in the finals to the Clippers.
Kawhi gets the second ring.
And I think Ben Simmons wins third ring, actually.
Oh.
Ben Simmons wins most improved player of the NBA.
After making 1 3-pointer.
And so I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I didn't do bench stats because those don't really matter.
Just on the spot, what about the rookie we drafted?
Matisse Thybulle. I think he'll get a lot more playing time than people think because he played 4 years in college.
A little bit to see what he's made of.
Yeah.
He's
a great defender. So I feel like in crunch time, I feel like they could swap out Tobias Harris and Matisse Thybulle, late in the fourth quarter in like a 10-point game, or less. So I could definitely see Brett Brown doing that. But this is gonna be a good year for the Sixers. It's gonna be a great year for the Sixers. I don't think they'll have to make a huge trade at the trade deadline,
such as Jimmy
unless
Butler.
there's an injury. I don't know much that they could pick up at the trade deadline anyway.
Or Robert Covington has another second version of himself.
And I think it's Matisse Thybulle, if I'm being honest with you.
I don't know. What do you think? Robert Covington was just, worse than Jimmy Butler, so.
I think Matisse Thybulle is a lot like Robert Covington. I think people are going to like him a lot. Now, here we go.
He's going to be better?
Who? Matisse Thybulle is going to be better than Covington?
Yeah.
Long term? Yeah.
What
this year? No.
What about within 2-3 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
He could be. Now we got to shift over into our weekly dose of Phillies. Oh, how we dread this time.
So, this day in history, September 19th, Jackie Robinson wins the 1942 MLB Rookie of the Year, making him the first black player to win Rookie of the Year. And let's get into some power rankings here.
So, I have my MLB power rankings up. Alex is going to start, though, with his NFL power rankings. So, take it away.
So, I have a sleeper here with San Francisco at number 10. They've been okay over the past 2 weeks. They killed Jameis.
That first game was amazing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Richard Sherman had a pick 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have Green Bay at number 9. They've just been successful. They killed the Vikings. The Vikings almost made a comeback. And then they had the most boring game probably is going to be all year with the Bears. We're going to have Seattle at number 8. They're just consistency. For the past few years, they've been 9-7, 10-6. I think there's a year that they just didn't make the playoffs. But it's going to continue being like that, and they continue being in the top 10 for weeks and weeks and weeks. I'm at Philadelphia at 7. They are going to be falling down a little bit with the injuries. Though keep in mind, that doesn't mean they're going to lose this week. We all know this. It's the Lions. Deshaun Jackson's out. Alshon Jeffrey's out. Ruger Hill's still out, correct? And we're going to move on with Atlanta at number 6. For most people, this is them moving up about 10 spots, which is a little crazy, but their offense looked like it could be very explosive. Matt Ryan only missed a few throws, and their defense was okay. We have, sadly, Dallas at 5. We have to all admit it, even though they've won 2 games against the garbage teams, Dak has looked better than Dak. I hate to say it. And Zeke has looked like Zeke. But, with that great offensive line, though Taco Charlton being released is going to hurt for the defensive line, everything's still going to be fine for them. Top 5 team. For 4, we're going to have Baltimore. Baltimore also winning against 2 garbage teams. They barely won against the Cardinals. We saw 2 great quarterbacks, or 2 great young quarterbacks, Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson there. But, yep, Baltimore.
2 very mobile quarterbacks as well.
2 running backs. Yeah, good for a running back. But, they've had a good offense. I'm pretty sure they produced about, 80 points the past 2 games? Which, 60 in one game is pretty good. 58. And then we're going to have 3 with the Los Angeles Rams. And, Aaron Donald giving Drew Brees a high five probably just made him retire. No. But, anyways, the Rams, they beat the Saints. They're good.
That's an interesting point you bring up there. Mm-hmm. Drew Brees is 40.
Yeah.
This sucks. Could lead to a retirement.
And keep in mind, I don't have him in the top 10. Depending on how Teddy Bridgewater does, that could change. Don't think that these won't change within a week. And number 2, we're going to have Kansas City. Explosive offense. Tyreek Hill isn't in there, but, that doesn't matter. Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes, probably going to win MVP if he continues playing like this, which he probably will. And then, who could have guessed? The best team of this decade, the best team of the past 2 decades, the Patriots.
Best franchise of all time.
Yep. Did anybody not expect this? I mean, they killed the Dolphins.
Especially with AB.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Who didn't play. Oh, no, he did. He
played in the Dolphins
and he got a
game.
touchdown.
Yeah.
Who is number 17 now. Keep that in mind. It's very disgusting seeing him in the Patriots uniform. But, that's that. Patriot number 1.
It's the Patriot way.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to transition over into the MLB Power Rankings. And I just want to say, in 2 weeks, I'm going to start my NBA Power Rankings, which is very exciting. But at 10, we're going to start out here with the Chicago Cubs. Last week, I didn't have them in my top 10. But the Cubs swept a weekend series against the Pirates. They scored a record 47 runs across 3 games against the Pirates. It carried the offensive momentum over into the Reds series. But I just want to say they could be dropping in the playoffs because of injuries to Javier Baez and Anthony Rizzo. Javier Baez is done for the season with a hairline fracture in his left thumb. And then Anthony Rizzo is out for at least a week with a lateral right ankle sprain. But I think they remain relevant. I think they have a lot of other great players like Chris Bryant, Albert Almora, Ian Happ. They have a good pitching rotation, Cole Hamels, Yu Darvish, all those great guys. Number 9, I want to go to the Cleveland Indians. I don't recall having them in my last week's top 10. They might have been pretty low. But the Indians carried a 4-game winning streak into their big 3-game weekend in the beginning of the week against the Twins and went on to lose both halves of a rain-out makeup doubleheader on Saturday before rallying for a 7-5 victory on Sunday. Cleveland is now 5 games back in Minnesota, and they will probably be eliminated sooner or later. I don't know exactly what the magic number is right now for Cleveland, but I know it's coming up. But I think they could do damage in the wild card. So we're going to move on to number 8 here. It's the St. Louis Cardinals, who actually they've had a pretty bad loss to the Brewers on Sunday, but the last week they have been really streaky. And when they're on fire, they are really on fire. Both of the Brewers, the Cardinals, and the Cubs are all great. I think the Brewers are going to end up losing the playoff spot because of the Christian Yelich injury. I think the Cardinals will get the playoff spot, and the Cubs could possibly make the wild card. If they don't, the Phillies, the Mets, and the Diamondbacks are right there. So we'll see how it plays out. At 7, we still have the Oakland Athletics. I had them at 8 last week. They had 6 straight road victories against the Astros and the Rangers before losing to the Royals at home on Monday. There has to be some concern about Mike Fierce, who got lit up for 9 earned runs in just 1 inning of work against the Astros.
I don't really know much about baseball, but I know that's bad. That's really
bad. That's
bad.
Bad.
That's like the Orioles bad. Oh wait.
He was 12-0 with a 2.6 ERA in his previous 21 starts before that outing in Houston.
That's miserable. Just that outing.
He did start growing a beard, which could be it. But he did have nerve irritation in his right arm. 6 is the Tampa Bay Rays. They currently have the number 1 wild card spot in the American League. They had an up and down week against the Rangers and the Angels, respectively. They are currently 1.5 games up on the Indians for the second American League wildcard spot with less than 2 weeks to play. Right now, they're only half a game behind the Athletics for the right to host the AL wildcard game. Tyler Glasnow is back in action and pitching as an effective short inning starter. And Blake Snell is set to make a return on Tuesday night against the Dodgers. Entering the top 5 here, we have the Minnesota Twins, who are slowly dropping, but not losing any spots in the standings. I think their pitching staff needs to get a lot better if they want success in the playoffs. Jose Barrios is good, and I think that there's the other guy. I forget what his name is. Oh, I think he's leaving in free agency, which is a bad sign. 4, again, hate to see it. I said that a few times last week. The Atlanta Braves at 4. They did lose 2 of their last 3 to the Phillies, but they have clinched a postseason berth after they won 10-1 against the Nationals on Saturday. And their magic number now is 1, I believe. As a matter of fact, I think the Braves win today clinched the division for them, which is exciting news for Atlanta. They're 94-60 at the time of this recording. At 3, we're gonna go to the Dodgers. They're dropping here. They are 3 games shy of the magic number 100. The Dodgers clinched their 7th consecutive NL West title last week. I talked about that before. Hyun-Jin Ryu is struggling in his previous 5 outings. Walker Buehler and Clayton Kershaw would handle games 1 and 2 in the National League Division series, with Ryu getting the 3rd game. So, number 2 is the Houston Astros. It was close between the Yankees and the Astros, but with some news that came out today and some news that have come out in the last week for the Yankees, I have the Astros at number 2. Their offense is obviously as explosive as it's been the last 3 years, which is good. But really, it just came down to who has the better shot in the playoffs this year, and I think that edge goes to the Yankees. So at number 1, I do have the New York Yankees, the best franchise in sports. Luis Severino came back on Tuesday night, and Giancarlo Stanton was activated off the injury list last week. You'll love to see it. 2 of their best players on the team are back in action just in time for the playoffs. But some news came out today that Domingo Germán, is going to face charges for domestic violence.
And that's sports.
And he will miss the playoffs, obviously, so that's a big hit to their starting rotation. But getting Luis Severino back is a huge part. He was very good last year. He's very good in the beginning of this year. But I think the Yankees could win the World Series this year.
Yeah, I'm guessing you have them as your favorites because they're number 1. Makes sense,
I have them beating the Dodgers currently.
So, is that it? Does that wrap up this podcast?
That wraps up that. Yes, it does. It wraps up this podcast. So, make sure, tune in on Sunday against Detroit.
Watch a mauling.
For sure.
You can make your predictions on what players are going to get injured.
Yes. Leave a
What's
comment.
your prediction?
I'm
thinking maybe Jason Peters. Sucks to say, but
he does have a history of that.
Yeah, like Super Bowl season. That's a big one, and plus getting older. But yeah, don't actually make predictions. It's gonna.
But leave a comment, or if you want to put your own Sixers predictions down there. Show me, what you think about the Sixers this year. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, we have an Instagram.
We do have an Instagram. It's at BAP Podcast, and a Twitter at the same name.
If I remember
so be sure to check those out.
If I remember, I'll put that in the description. So
for sure.
Check that.
And there'll be timestamps, by the way.
Yeah, every week.
So I think that's it.
Yep.
So tune in next week as we'll discuss the Lions game, and we'll talk about the Packers. We'll talk about kind of what we see this team looking like, the Eagles, and we'll start wrapping up the Phillies season. So see you next time.